Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at energy fuels. It is time for another update, and today we'll be discussing the attempt to extend directly higher as expected since the previous video, but also the likelihood of this pattern still to manage to push into higher levels. But before we get there, I would like to go quickly through the larger time frame for any of you who might be new. And here we are tracking this larger 1-2 setup, where we would now like to see a third wave form to the upside. Now, as mentioned in many of the previous videos, the ideal target for the wave 3 is quite an extension from the current price levels. Yeah, it would be at the 138.2% extension of the wave 1, the $130 level. Now, since we already formed the largest portion of this uptrend, we have formed the wave 1, 2 and 3, we really need only to find the bottom in the wave 4 and form a fifth wave to the upside. And while it is possible to even see extensions, it is possible to have here a 1, 2 and have a third wave still to unfold that could get us to those levels. In a wave 5, if this really is a wave 5, it isn't necessarily the highest likelihood scenario, yeah? And for that reason, we may need to be more open to other interpretations, which include having a more significant top form sooner rather than later, maybe at the 100% extension here of the wave 1, if I can actually get this back, yeah, the $47 level. And then that would be even an ideal target for the wave C if we were to be tracking this structure as an ABC movement. Now, the thing with this idea is that it would expect to form a more significant top in this area that would lead to quite a substantial correction afterwards. Now, it doesn't need to happen in a straight line or directly, but it is something we need to be careful about. And then, of course, it's still possible to form a larger wave 1, part of an even larger wave 3 to the upside, but again, we would still expect a substantial correction even in a follow-up wave 2 correction, at least to the 38.2% retracement of this entire structure to the upside. Now, with that said, we can still focus on the internal movement right now, because for this structure we still expect continuation higher in all the interpretations mentioned previously. Yeah, all three scenarios actually expect still at least another high within this area. And based on the current developments that we have been tracking within this wave 4, we actually have sufficient data that could allow us to have already bottomed, yeah? And we can even track the idea of an impulse as long as we hold here the 50% retracement, yeah? An impulse to have formed or to be forming if we don't manage to break below the $10.7 level. Now, with that said, this structure also has an appropriate pattern for the correction in wave 4. It can be tracked as something like an ABC movement, in which case realistically we don't need any additional lows, and we are tracking a potential fifth wave to have already started. Now, even in that case, we do still have to deal with some relevant resistance levels, in this case the levels between the $16.5 all the way there up to the $23 level at the 78.6% retracement. And along the way we do also need to face substantial structural resistance levels, yes, something like the $18.5 level around this area, the quite close to the 50% retracement, and then also the 78.6% retracement. There's also a wall basically between here the the $22.2 all the way up to the $23.4 level for structural resistance to be counted for. Now, we also had here this trend line that has already been broken, which is a good signal for this structure to manage to push higher into this movement to the upside, possibly in a fifth wave, possibly in a larger correction in the yellow interpretation, yes, something like an ABC movement that could basically extend the wave 4 in green, but it doesn't seem to have proven so useful. We did only have a couple of touch points, and at the third one here we did manage after a brief slowdown to still break it, and we have been managing afterwards to use it as support at least one time, yeah. Now, with that said, I don't think it is necessary to keep track of it anymore. And within this area, in blue, we are tracking at the moment this idea of an ABC movement to the upside. And since we only have here a 3-wave move, it is unfortunate, but we don't have a high probability trade setup on this time frame, yeah? We did have, of course, after that, a 3-wave correction to the downside into the 61.8% retracement, also into the larger area of support at 38.2% retracement, and we even managed afterwards to form here a potential initial 5-wave move to the upside, which has been interesting. Yeah, we did point that out in the previous video. that after such a structure, it is preferred that we extend at least in one additional 5-wave move to the upside. And then we have here an internal area of resistance, which could actually allow us to find a reset for this wave B that we are tracking in the blue scenario. And for that reason, this area of support for blue, for the blue scenario, for the larger ABC movement, is still standing, and it is down to the $12.9 level. Yeah, where if we get a break below the 78.6% retracement, it's a warning that this structure is more likely not going to hold out, and that we should expect possibly even a reset within the wave 4 in a more direct fashion. Now, even though we would expect here to form a wave C, yeah, this could have been or could be part of the larger wave B in a yellow scenario, so don't get too bullish if we manage to break through this area of resistance. But a break here above the 78.6% retracement in yellow, yeah, in the smaller time frame, the $15.9 level, is a signal that this structure is more likely going to manage to extend higher. And so far we have only managed to have a couple of weeks above this level, and yeah, we have basically a double top in this area where we only managed to form a slightly higher high, where right now I am still actually tracking the same count as in the previous video. I don't believe we have necessarily bottomed within this wave 2. We may have formed a bottom now. We did form a reset of the wave 2 correction, and I am even able to count this as a larger ABC movement in of itself, which actually is a clear structure that can allow us to consider a bottom in. And then internally, as long as we hold this 78.6% retracement that goes down to the $13.9 level, we can look higher, where a break below it would signal, a significant break, a sustained break, let's say, would signal that we should expect at least a reset within the larger wave B, and then we can start looking for the wave C to the upside once more. But right now it's still holding and it's looking good. We have even broken above a relevant level here in the smaller time frame that we will discuss in a moment. But I also wanted to point out that for me it is possible technically to consider this a wave B top, and that the wave C to even a reset in the wave 4 in green has possibly started, and we will need to break relevant resistance levels for a signal that this is not the case. And this would be for the idea of an internal 1-2 setup in this area. And in that case, we would be tracking the levels between the $14.8 all the way up to the $15.6 level, where if we manage to break this $15.6 level, the 78.6% retracement on this smaller time frame, it could signal to us that we should likely see a break even above the next level of resistance, and the third wave to the upside to have started in the blue interpretation. But still, this needs to be a sustained break. Yeah, just a week above it, as we have seen here a couple of times, does not cut it. It is not enough, and it is not a signal that we get here a week above this level. It is not a signal that this structure will manage ultimately to break through. And within this push lower, I was tracking, as we were in the pre-market, a potential 5-wave move to the downside, where I could have actually even seen an extension lower since yesterday's pricing, since yesterday's bottom. And I would have been looking here for an ABC movement. But now, since we actually broke above this previous level of resistance, the previous wave 4 top, I can actually assume that we have already formed a bottom here within an ABC movement, which is more than sufficient to consider this overall structure complete and to not need any additional lows. But this, again, would still need to see a break of this potential wave 2 that we could be forming right now in the yellow scenario. And right now there are no smaller time frame areas of resistance that we can track with a high degree of confidence. Yeah, some other structures could technically work out, but right now, yeah, this is the most likely interpretation for me, where this would be a wave 1 possibly. Yeah, could be a wave 1, could be just a wave A. Overall, I won't necessarily be looking too much into the counts, and I will be focusing on the areas of support, yeah, here in blue at the moment, and if broken, the next level of support that still remains available in blue, and the areas of resistance that we have here in yellow for this potential wave 2. Although right now I would like to see a third wave to start unfolding to the upside in this blue interpretation, for which I can give you an ideal target before we actually close it up, and this would be the 138.2% extension of the wave 1, and that would be, what is it, around the $18 level, yeah? The $18 level is around the ideal target for the wave 3. It is right before the 50% retracement, where other additional structural resistance levels happen and occur, and yeah, we may get into those levels, we may break a bit above it, but then I would expect a larger correction to occur at least within an internal wave 4 in this scenario. And for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.